it a little bit earlier than normal, just so I can make sure and people can hear me. So hi people, we are in Loudoun County. This is where parents have really decided that they are not going to take this. It's also where a young girl was raped in a school, so I think we'll start. I'm just going to gather everyone up, so you're going to hear me on this while I do this. Can you check that I'm not like too tall, too?
Yeah.
Let's just. Oh, that's the wrong one.
Actually, maybe if you.
If I do it like that, then.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. There, is that better?
It's a little high.
What are you saying?
It was stunning to me. I was so shocked. And
Still high?
Still a little touch high, but I think you're.
Go on.
Bring this down just a touch. But.
All right. Just going to say, there are normal sized people here as well, so I'll have to adjust it.
I'm trying to make up for it.
I'm like, you know what? These things that I just...
Yeah? Okay. All right, I'm going to talk to everyone. Okay. So we're gonna start the live stream now. If you want to come over here, so we've got this lovely building. Yeah, if you want, yeah. Hi, I've met you before.
Yes.
Hi, how nice to see you.
I didn't find out about it till today, so I don't have a sign.
Oh, that's all right. There's plenty. Right, if you want to come over by the live stream over here, I'll just grab my bag.
And I'll try and take a group picture and then I'll come in your live stream. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just want to give Maureen a variety of pictures.
Come round.
Don't be shy.
Come and stand in the warm. So this is where the camera is. Stand behind, stand in front, wherever you want to be. If it's going to look weird if I'm talking to nobody.
Okay.
So it's entirely up to you. But everybody can come and speak. So gather this way. If you don't want to be on camera, if you go that side.
Maria.
Okay? You don't have to be on camera. Normally we just. All right. Okay.
You want to be on?
You all want it. They all want to be on camera. That's basically what we're learning here.
Yeah, go on in the grass more if you can. It will be probably helpful for the live stream.
I won't.
Rosie can talk to me.
For anybody worried about the camera, if you stand behind there, I won't go round the back.
What do you think?
Well,
Okay.
I don't know where to be.
Well, come and stand. Come on. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. We are in the hub of what I would like to call the ground zero of American Fight Back, which is parents who've absolutely had enough of what's going on with their children's schools. And I feel like the reason we came to Loudoun is the school boards is where the fights are going to be won, and it's going to be parents, especially mothers. Sorry. It's going to be mothers, I think, that eventually turn this whole thing, and grandmothers. But hang on. Let me just say, you're a grandmother because you're a mother, right?
That's correct.
So mothers. I'm allowed to say that. So it's going to be mothers that flip this stuff upside down, that change basically the world when it comes to the safeguarding of children. So I'm going to have to do this because these lovely people have all stood behind me. The way Speaker's Corner works is that you can come and talk. I give you this microphone. I don't think we are allowed amplification here, so we are outside. In fact, I'll get one of the Loudoun County residents to talk about exactly why this building is significant. But you come and you can talk for however long you like. I won't lie, if you talk for too long, people do get bored. Yeah, come and say what you want to say. This is why we're doing it. For women who are a little bit hard of thinking on Twitter in the UK, we've got no militia with us today. And the purpose of these events is to allow women to speak. That's why it's called Let Women Speak. So it's women speaking what their experience is, not their truth, because their truth is the truth, what their experience is with this pernicious, nasty, evil ideology that is not only attacking women but attacking our children. So that's what this event is all about. I'm really sorry that some of you found that a little bit of a difficult concept. I think it's quite plain. So I will give you the microphone and you can speak. Who would like to speak? Come on, who's going to be first? Come on. Could you tell them why? Right, amazing. Thank you so much.
So we're here today at the Loudoun County Government Building is where we're starting, and the Loudoun County Government Building is where our Board of Supervisors meet, and also where we as parents of Loudoun County Public Schools have had many rallies to bring awareness from when we were wanting the schools open, when they closed the schools from COVID, anti-CRT rallies, and that's where again, this is kind of like our starting ground, and we're going to, we want to bring awareness because also our school board, they had voted over a year ago to take parental rights away and to keep secrets from parents, and secrets actually from even other students. They can have a child go to school and their little Johnny, who they know Johnny well, gets to school and one day says at school, "Call me Sally." Teachers and staff are not allowed to call the parents and confirm if Johnny should now be called Sally. So he will now be at school, living as Sally, can use pronouns, can actually even change their name on the school records. There is somebody that I personally know who went to pick up their child from school, and they said that child was not at that school. Can you imagine how that feels? That your child's supposed to be in this safe lockdown school and they're saying, "We don't have anybody by that name here." Turns out they let the child change their name on the record and they're not letting the parents know. So it's wrong. Parents need to be involved. Parents need to know. We know many of the stories of the kids, including the Perez's daughter in Jacksonville, Florida, who was at 12 years old, groomed by her guidance counselor, including she tried to hang herself at school. They didn't even call her parents and let her know, and then within 24 hours, she tried to hang herself again. These poor parents, can you imagine what it was like? We have to stand up for these kids. We have to stand up for all of them. We have to teach everybody that, you know, it's awkward being a kid. It's not easy being a kid, but we've been through it. We've made it through it. And we have to love the kids as they are, and we have to tell them the truth. Boys can't be girls, and girls can't be boys. And we have to stop with the lies. We have to stop with the mutilation and the sterilization and preserve their childhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I take your microphone, my love? Thank you so much. Come on then next. Now we're warm.
I want to say something.
Good. I'm going to pin this on you right here.
Okay. This is the public record of my dissent. I'm going to say something that's unpopular. I'm going to say something I wish I didn't have to say. I'm going to be political. It shouldn't be political. It shouldn't even be controversial. But it is because Democrats have made it so. And so I'm making it my mission to share the way that they've gone wrong, the way the left has gone wrong. Now, in 2021, every single Democratic member of Congress co-sponsored and passed legislation that erases women as a category of sex. It uses the language of the 1964 Civil Rights Act to replace the word sex with gender identity in public accommodations, in women's sports. Gender identity is not even defined. It's just whatever a man feels like he is. He can identify into a woman's prison. And no, I'm not talking about a man who has had surgery. I'm talking about a fully intact man. Usually sex offenders can just identify into a women's prison and become predators on women that they're locked up with. This is insane. Now, you may not have heard about it because the media has absolutely ignored it. And if we were allowed to speak freely, if the media covered it fairly, we wouldn't be in this mess. But Democrats, my party, the party I've supported since I was 10 years old, they have made it a mission to change, to ensure that women are not able to say, we're women, to say that we have separate experiences. Democrats have made it their mission to say that biology doesn't matter. And so I'm making it my mission to try to change my party, which I love, by making them lose. If they don't have a consequence, they will not change. So think about that when you go vote. I hate to make it political, but until they have a consequence, they will not change.
She's talking to you, Jennifer Wexton.
Yes!
Thank you so much. I'm going to grab the microphone. Normally the TRAs that try and steal my equipment. Would you like to speak? Really badge you've got there.
Thank you. I got it from you. Well, I also am a Democrat, and I'm still voting Democrat. However, I believe we can change it from within. No, it's not too late. But this is not about politics left or right. This is an issue about people have to understand the difference between sex. And it used to mean the same thing as gender, but now it means sexual identity. And while I am a liberal, I always have been, you do not get to just change. Your sexual identity does not mean that you can foist it on everybody else. It is not a 1984 in Newspeak where we have to call this, blue is not green, a man is not a woman. But most importantly, and all of us can agree from all parties, that the sexualization of children has got to stop. When I went to college, I used to go to drag shows, and they were tame. They had long dresses, occasional mini skirt, having a good time lip syncing. Now it's like they're wearing pasties and thongs and having little girls, dance next to them and put money in there. I'm not for having a family-friendly drag show or a family-friendly burlesque show in the elementary school. I do not want the Magic Mike male strippers there either. It is not about that. It is about not sexualizing our children. And people say, oh, they know what they are. No. My son came to me when he was 6 years old and he said, Mom, I think I might be gay. And I said, that's okay, but why? What is it about, you like the color pink, or what, And he said, well, I enjoy doing more things with boys. They like to play with the same toys. They like to play the same video games. The girls don't have anything that. I said, honey, believe me, later on in life, there's going to be plenty of guys who are not gay, who do not want to watch the same movies, play the same games, play the same sports. It's okay. But suppose I had said, honey, let's affirm. We don't affirm. We should not be affirming gender dysphoria. We do not affirm cutting. We do not affirm anorexia. We do not affirm children getting facial tattoos and doing heroin. So children need to be protected. That's my main gig. Sorry I took so long.
Thank you.
But just real quick to know, because I know it's not a place to debate, but every House Democrat every House Democrat voted to take away parental rights. Every single one of them last month. Every single one of them. Think about that.
And most of the Republicans have said that Joe Biden wasn't elected, that climate change isn't a thing, they're not worried about our water. That's not what we're here about today.
Well, we're about parental
We're
rights
here
to
for
protect
women's
those
rights. And men, I guess, too. They have the right to their own private bathrooms.
Yeah.
But this shouldn't be a partisan issue.
No, it shouldn't, but
we should all come together.
I'm just going to say this. Neither Trump was in office for however long, and this stuff was still eroding, and he could have protected the parents, and he could have protected the kids. So I don't think it is a partisan issue, even though I think the left are really pushing this hard. I think both the Conservative government in my country and when the Republicans were in office, they had a chance to do things that they didn't. So I think there is no party that really stands up for women or children, but right now you may have a different idea about the political climate in the US at the moment. Natasha, let me just, would you like to come and speak?
Sure, I'll say something particularly about this while we're here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We can have a beer and talk about this all day.
We'll all come together on this.
Okay, so I've been a parent activist in Loudoun County since 2019. And I was going before the school board and warning them because they were going to adopt a policy language to their non-discrimination policy to incorporate gender identity. And I explained to them so they cannot claim ignorance because I told them to their faces, you have to choose. You're either going to protect sex, right, or you're going to protect gender identity. They are completely mutually incompatible. You cannot have them both. And I explained to them what would happen. So when policy 8040, that's the one that destroys parental rights, and regulation 8040, in the school boards of Loudoun County, they knew. They were warned. They were warned years ago. They were warned about what would happen if they allowed gender identity to be what a male student could use to identify into the girls' locker rooms. They knew. So nothing that happened in Loudoun County in 2021 was a surprise. We knew this was going to happen. There was no, they had a warning. And now we're here in front of the Loudoun County government building because years ago they adopted gender identity into their non-discrimination policy, which means that every single recreational center in Loudoun County allows men into the locker rooms and the bathrooms, at the pools and anywhere else. And they were told that's a problem too. They claim ignorance that no, that doesn't happen, but it does. We have activists from Fairfax that likes to come to Loudoun County and use our rec center because of how friendly the facilities are to him. So anyways, that's why we're standing here in front of the Loudoun County government building, because they enabled this. They have destroyed our privacy rights, where I have to pay taxes and yet I have to share those facilities with men, so I don't use them. I don't even get to use the facilities that I pay for. So another thing I wanted to just say in terms of, you know, hey, we can work from within the party. I've been telling feminists for years, 10 of you, loyal women, just stick together. You go into your local Democrat committees, you take over. You can do it. I've seen it on the right. We do it on the right in the Republican Party. You can do it. You have to stick together. You get into your committee, you become a member, and you decide who the candidates are going to be. And you decide, when you vet candidates, where they stand on the issues you care about. And you work from the bottom up. You decide who's going to run for supervisor under the Democrat ticket. You decide who's going to get the endorsement for school board. You can do it. It's going to take years. It's hard work. You just need like a group of 10 of you, and you stick together and you can take over. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I take that?
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. I just want to remind, because I think this issue is the thing that unites us. There are other issues which I'm sure we would remain divided. Standing for Women isn't Twitter. We are just it's a single focus. It's saving children and saving women's rights. That's what we do. And I think we can go back and tear strips off each other as soon as no more girls are getting their breasts sliced off. No more little boys are losing their privacy and dignity in school toilets. No more women are having to pretend that they're not actually called women. And no more men are being called women. When we've won that war, then I'm happy. Well, I'll probably just go back home. But I'm happy to have other fights. But right now, I think this is the most urgent and pressing matter. I was having a conversation earlier today where we talked about what is the legacy of the cognitive dissonance we are imposing upon children right now. So what will happen to our children as adults when they cannot actually fundamentally stand on the truth as children, when they are they're having to pretend at school that a boy is a girl or a girl is a boy, or that they don't know what biological sex is? I think the harm to an entire generation, especially in this country, is going to be totally profound. Anyway, this is not about let Kelly speak. So who else would like to talk? But come on, you must be able to speak.
Rather. Hey, I grew up in this area. I grew up in Fairfax, and we used to say, the joke used to be that Loudoun County was Fairfax, but 10 or 15 years behind. In the 90s, what you heard about was don't Fairfax Loudoun. I'm not kidding. You used to see those signs when you drove down 50. And what they meant by that was they meant don't overdevelop it. That was, and I used to be somewhat involved in the preservation committee. Loudoun lost that fight. We all know it. Remember the don't supersize Loudoun? How well did that work? We can't take our foot off the pedal here. There's still a chance to save the kids. There's still a chance to save the women. There's still a chance to save us all. But we can't stop. When I was in the 90s, if you told me that this was what we were going to have to deal with, I wouldn't have believed you. But I remember in middle school going to gym class and having to change with girls in the locker room for the first time. You know, you're 12 years old. It's awful. You hate it. You hate it. And there are cubicles in there. And you could use a cubicle. But I don't know a single girl who ever used a cubicle. And do you know why they didn't use a cubicle, no matter how uncomfortable you were? Because you didn't want to put yourself out there. You didn't want to risk somebody teasing you about it. Oh, what? You can't change around us? You have a problem? You think we're going to look at you? Kids don't want to be ridiculed. So they're not going to stand up for this. Very few children are going to have the guts to stand and make themselves targets. There are a handful of them, but most of them are going to keep their heads down. I was raised in a more conservative household, and so I was used to being a little, being a little different. I didn't go out and party and drink and whatnot. And there were times when I stood up for what I believed, but there were also times when I kept my head down because it was just easier. The girls are not going to take themselves out of the locker room because they don't want to be made fun of. They don't want to be called bigots. And it's not just the kids who will do it. It's the teachers. It's the administrators. I went to George Mason University. You know what they did a few years ago? I got a lovely passive-aggressive email from our university president informing us that we were going to open up all the facilities to anyone. So if you went and you wanted to use our lovely, very, very expensive athletic centers that your tuition dollars were paying for, if you wanted to use them, you had to be willing to risk a man being in there with you changing. Now, our university president did not have to change in front of other women, and if he had, maybe he would have gotten off on it. I don't know. The women, the female administrators, they did not have to go and share those spaces with the men. It was the women who had to deal with it. And so I never once used those lovely, expensive facilities. I would have loved to, but that would have meant, since I didn't live on campus, that would have meant having to go home in my sweaty clothes. It would have meant having to come in my athletic gear for the whole day. I wasn't going to do that, and so I didn't get to use them. And what about the religious women who cannot use them? The Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, the women who aren't religious but just don't want to. What about us? We matter too. And what about the men who don't want to change in front of a woman? What about the men who don't want to open themselves up to potential accusations? Good men stay out so bad men stand out. So the good men are going to, and you see this. If you talk to men and you say, well, what would you do if a young woman walked into the locker room at your local pool and she started stripping off? The good men, their instinct is to get out of there. But if they leave, she's left with the men who chose to stay. No good man wants to be in a changing room with another female. No female, I don't care what you say, Emma Watson, or all these other stupid celebrities, all these lying politicians, you don't want to change with these men. Whether they've had surgery or not, you don't want this. You may go along with it so that you can get your hand pats, but you don't want it. You're willing to put up with it because it's easier. The kids are willing to put up with it because it's easier. And so those of us who actually, for whatever reason, maybe we're just stubborn old cusses, we're super contrarian. There's a lot of us here. That's why our ancestors came here to America, because we got sick of dealing with people in Europe. I don't know. No offense. No, we're contrarians. The contrarians have to speak up because most people are going to go along. And that's how this kind of crap happens, and then it becomes normal. We still have a chance, but we got to keep on at it. And more of us are going to have to stand up, and we can't rip each other apart doing it. I'm talking to you, British feminist Twitter. I lurk on there. You have some great things to say. Your analysis is great, but we need everybody. You want to know why we haven't gotten further on a lot of issues, and I'm not going to get into what those issues are because This is a single issue thing, and I think that's great. One of the reasons we haven't gotten further on a lot of things is because we divide ourselves and we say, oh, I won't work with her. Oh, I can't talk to him. Right. I can't stand with him. No. We stand together. We'll all hang together, or we shall all surely hang. Well, we got to hang together because otherwise we're going to lose. But we can win this.
Thank you so much. Well, there it is. It seems like I should have left the British shores quite some time ago and joined the Contrarians. Would you like to speak? Oh, love it. Thank you.
Hi. I'm very new to this movement. I only learned about it like 2 weeks ago from my friend Maria. I'm here essentially because I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters, 3 sons. I'm a grandmother. I have 6 grandkids. 2 of them are girls. And as I learn more, it just distresses me. My granddaughters live in Florida. And just learning about this, so I really don't have much to say because I'm a newbie. I agree it should not be a political issue. I've been a liberal all my life, like a blazing liberal. And yet I find this is one issue I cannot talk about in certain places because people get really irate and annoyed. I'm learning to speak out more. So that's good. I was in the hospital yesterday, obviously. I had to have some lab work done. And when I went to register, this young woman asked me, what pronouns do you use? Well, first I heard the guy next door was asked, and there was a man standing there, and I heard his registrant say, what pronouns? And he was like, can't you tell a man? And then I looked at the girl who was checking me in, and she said, we have to ask that. And I said, well, I'm obviously a woman, and I use I, me, mine. You know, those are my pronouns. And it seems to be pervasive everywhere at this point. Hospitals, schools, and I think that's very problematic because it misconstrues reality. And we have enough lies going on in our country. We don't need to add any more. You know, we have plenty we can fight about. This is not one of them. It's biology. I have a background as a nurse and as a pastor, and in both of those roles, I have seen it, and it appalls me. The more I learn, the more I say, whoa, is this really happening? When Maria first told me about it, I'm like, that can't be real. That has to be fake. And then I started looking and I learned more, and I thought, no, this is really happening. So I'm beginning to take my head out of the sand and learn how to speak up. But I'm a newbie, so thank all of you.
Thank you.
Oh, you want your thing back.
Welcome to turfdom.
Thank
That's
you.
all I can say. Would you like to talk?
Yeah, I will.
I'm going to put it just a little bit further away, although everyone's speaking nice and quietly today. So it's pretty good.
Well, I came today because I'm a mother and because I'm very concerned about what's happening in our schools. As an adult, it's easy to self-select where we go or where we don't go. We can choose to go to a gym or not to go to a gym, whether we go to a bathroom or to a locker room, but our kids don't have that same choice. When my little boys go to the school, they will choose to not drink water all day long because they don't have a safe bathroom to use. And they'll zip home from school and they'll rush to the bathroom because they're holding it all day long. There are teachers in the schools that are actively telling them, I'm your safe person. And I'm saying, no. Any adult that is actively saying to a small child, I'm safe, means they're lying to you. They're pitting you against parents and people that love and provide for them. So we have this thing happening that's creating division and confusion every single day. And I'm scared. I'm concerned and troubled by what's happening all day, every day, that's completely out of our reach.
and when our children are being indoctrinated in ways that are unseen. My son went to the library last week and was shown a section in the library that was called Virginia Choice. And the books were very specific. They were all a specific category of books. And it's troubling to me that my children can't go to school just to read and to write and to learn how to do math, but instead they're being asked for their pronouns. And when other children are being actively pulled away from their peers and talked about things away from everyone else, I want to know why. And when I tell the school over and over and over, stop surveying my children, stop asking them personal questions, stop trying to ask them about our personal details at home, they do it day after day. They keep doing it anyway. So there's a lot of things that unite us as women or as families or about our personal spaces. But what brings me here today is the fact that what's happening in schools, our children don't have control. They don't get to walk away. They don't have the option to make a different choice or to do something different, and they have adults in authority that are actively trying to confuse them. And when their peers are doing things that are different, they're being told that they're wrong. Our children are being told that it's okay to be a furry, that it's okay that there's kitty litter in the middle school bathroom, and this is now being considered normal. And so you talk about the repercussion of what the burdens these kids will carry into the next generation. It is heavy, and it will be these burdens will carry for a long time. So I appreciate having others who are willing to stand and speak, because we know that in Loudoun County there's a whole bunch of people that will actively cancel and do nasty things to people that have the audacity to care enough about children to say a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. And I want to love my children and the 80,000 other kids in this county enough to just speak the truth. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Oh no, you go. You're local.
Oh, but don't be afraid.
Come.
I know, but I want the local people to go.
Come on.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the people who've spoken already, but I'm mostly going to talk to the people who are at home or who aren't speaking. Public speaking is the #1 fear in this country. It beat out death and spiders. And I'm like really there, so I wrote things down just in case I get nervous and forget. I'm an atheist. I was raised in a Christian family, so I'm kind of familiar with the story of Moses and the burning bush. And the idea is God called Moses to go speak to the Pharaoh and tell him to release the Jewish slaves. And Moses initially resisted. He said he was slow of speech and clumsy of tongue. Now, this is a pretty terrifying assignment, so maybe he was just looking for an excuse, but I kind of prefer the interpretation that he was afraid of representing the cause poorly. I'm not accomplished or brilliant or beautiful. I'm not some avatar of perfection, but I don't have to be. I'm just here to speak the truth, as is theoretically my right, and as is all of your right. So that's why I really let women speak. A lot of us are mothers who don't like seeing this experimental surgical procedures carried out on children who are too young to consent, turning them into perpetual patients for insatiable pharma giants. A lot of us are lesbians who are sick of seeing spaces that were created by women for women who love women, invaded by predatory males who seek to validate their fetishes by coercing lesbians to sleep with them. There's a word for coerced sex. Gay men are seeing the same thing. They're being called bigots for having the audacity to exclude women from their love lives. Homosexuality itself is being defined out of existence, even as young homosexuals are being surgically subjected to conversion therapy. Maybe you're just here because you don't like seeing the athletic accomplishments of young girls erased or you feel pity for detransitioners who mutilated their healthy bodies for a lie. Maybe you don't want to see women incarcerated with male rapists, as is happening now in this country. But we don't have to be as brave as Moses. We just have to stand in solidarity with our sisters and speak truth. And now we still can, but we better do it while we still can, because laws are changing. So I want everybody here just to know that no one is born in the wrong body. Woman isn't something that can be chosen or a costume. No woman has a penis. Sorry, I completely, like I said, I'm terrified. I hate this. Yeah.
You're wrong, because you're really good at it.
No, look at my notes. Yeah, so trans in kids is child abuse. Iran isn't an ideal model for the treatment of homosexuals. Amen. Men who enter women's spaces are perverts and predators, and they get off on transgressing women's boundaries. And an erection is still just a boner, even if you call it gender euphoria.
Can I take the microphone?
Oh, please do. Like shaking.
Well, I just got to say that was the. I think that I'm not going to be very good at this was a little bit wrong. I thought you were brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, you should, every opportunity, you should do it. Absolutely. Who's next? Yes.
I'll be reading as well. Contrary to popular belief, I am not a right-wing extremist. I am a former lifelong Democrat and now politically homeless liberal. But someone needs to tell the party of women's lib that women and girls are not human shields for male violence. This midterms, I will be writing in a woman who has been fighting this fight long before many of us would. I'm writing in Kara Dansky. While she is not running, I cannot vote for the destruction of my rights. Democrats need to learn that we do not want Title IX recodified to erase our sex-based rights. We do not want our girls groomed, it is grooming, out of their natural protective instinct by calling their boundaries bigotry. Women and girls' boundaries will never be bigotry. We do not want males in female sport, and we do not want men, especially rapists and violent murderers of women, in women's prison. We do not want our children sterilized and mutilated for pharmaceutical profit. I've seen that show before. I watched my brother killed from medicalization, prescribed opioids at 16, following a spinal injury, and dead by 20 from legal prescriptions. I watched my grandfather beg his doctors with fists full of empty pill bottles to stop killing his grandson. I will not be bullied silent while pharma finds a new way to prey on children for profit. Sweden, Finland, France, Norway, the UK, all reversing course to varying degrees, and the U.S. children's lunch money if they don't allow males in female sport or for children to be medicalized. The American medical industrial complex hard at work manipulating parents, emotionally blackmailing them, telling them their child will commit suicide when there is no data to support this. And silencing us with kindness propaganda. Liberal be kindness. No, nothing is kind about preying on children and women. I am done with no debate. It is time for a return to pluralism and open debate. That is what it is to be a liberal. Women are 51% of the vote. We will be heard. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about your brother.
Thank you.
So sorry. I do like the big pharma industrial complex, though. That seems to be something we probably should use forevermore. Does anybody else want to speak? Come on.
To read, but it's women that are all.
That's all right.
Okay.
It's let women speak, not let women be told what to say. Do you want me to hold your sign?
Sure.
Right, let me. Come. All right.
It is in the theme of defense and women's instincts. Okay. A superficial understanding of history is more dangerous than no understanding at all. In this speech, I'm going to set the record straight on the false dichotomy between nonviolent actions and self-defense. The current raging internecine battle in the women's movement is between those who would consider our events to be subjected to nonviolent direct action pledges, I'll call this NVDA from here on out, and those who believe that self-defense and security is not only acceptable but necessary for the success of the movement. I'm the latter camp, and I will use this speech to illuminate why. The tale we are told about nonviolent resistance is that, like magic, being nonviolent in the face of violent attacks will win people over to our side better than violence of any kind will, that it is always the right strategy, and that people who resort to violence are being like men and should be shunned from our movement. But let's dig deeper into the source of this fairy tale. Several organizations' NVDA pledges direct people to Gene Sharp's work on his Albert Einstein Institute website. Let's assess the character and thinking of Gene Sharp and see if that fits with feminist ideals. Gene Sharp named his institute after Albert Einstein, a man who is documented to have beaten his first wife, to have deserted her when she had their first child, a daughter, to have likely stolen credit for their joint ideas, to have left her for his cousin, and who only gave her the child support for their son out of his Nobel Prize money because his wife had secured that agreement in their divorce proceedings. So at least it seems safe to say that when naming his institute, Gene Sharp wasn't really thinking about women in particular. Albert Einstein also worked on the Manhattan Project, developing nuclear weapons, so it remains a mystery why this guy would choose Einstein to be associated with nonviolence. Marcy Smith, a professor at John Jay College, looked into the work of Gene Sharp and found that his NVDA model reliably resulted in a reduction in social services and was commonly deployed against communist governments. She says he could be thought of as a cold warrior in this regard. I'm not a communist, but I imagine many of you out there might be alarmed that this is who people are directing you to, somebody whose work invariably results in the collapse of social safety nets. Professor Smith pointed out that Gene Sharp's thinking results in economic libertarianism or neoliberalism. I have an issue with that because libertarianism results in might makes right politics, and when the current might is the patriarchy, this practice cannot be good for women and girls. But Gene Sharp at least knew what direct actions are, even as he probably got the history of nonviolent resistance all wrong. Direct actions, which can be either violent or nonviolent, are meant to be strategic actions with a deliberate aim. Think something more like capture the flag than going on the swings or a seesaw. The image of black students sitting at a lunch counter in the South with food and drinks being poured on them and taunts being flung on them is thrown about. But this image was backed by months of planning and training. Everybody who participated had the same exact bite-sized goal, the desegregation of the lunch counters, and they had already run through various potential retaliation scenarios to their sit-in and how to respond to that without violence of any kind. Women exercising their First Amendment rights in public is not a direct action. We have no shared target in mind besides, gender identity stuff, but that's not as specific as a direct action. We have not trained together for months in a coordinated fashion to avoid natural and healthy and legal human responses to aggression. According to civil rights era historians, the principle of nonviolent direct actions only works under a particular set of conditions. These conditions include capturing something of value to the other side, like the economy of a downtown district with a boycott or sit-in, or receiving enough press coverage to move people's opinions. Protests that went largely unbroadcast to the wider public, like the Standing Rock protests several years ago, never succeeded because they were never publicized, even though the optics were as bad as at Selma. Implied in these conditions is the fact that the public must see retaliation against a group as heinous and must see the lack of self-defense as commendable. But we women live in a world where TV shows, movies, the nightly news, and porn regularly show violence against us and our degradation. Even if the press broadcast violent thugs attacking us as we stood by and took it, how many hearts would be moved by something society is numb to? Above all, NVDAs are strategic. Being subjected to violence without defending oneself must serve a purpose. It must not be gratuitous. Because NVDAs are and always were meant to be strategic, many of the nonviolent civil rights heroes we learned about in school actually had armed protection for self-defense out of pure pragmatism. MLK Jr. reportedly had an arsenal of weapons at his home for self-defense, and both he and the Corps volunteers who registered voters in the South relied on armed older men and the shadow organization Deacons for Defense and Justice to guard them as they went around on their NVDAs. I'm almost done. One of my favorite stories from the civil rights era that I came across when researching this was the story of Margaret Block, a SNCC volunteer registering voters in the South, and Mrs. Brewer, an 86-year-old grandmother who hosted her during her stay. Because the night riders were intimidating Margaret on her way back from registering voters during the day, Mrs. Brewer arranged to have a group of older armed black people lining her route back to stay on the grandmother's rural compound. When the night riders saw the armed black folks, they turned around and let her return home in peace. But Mrs. Brewer knew they would be back at night, true to their name, so she set up her kids and grandkids in the cotton fields with guns, and she herself was in her kitchen making Molotov cocktails. When the night riders returned, the family blared a bright light in their faces to disorient them, shot them up, and when the night riders saw the 86-year-old on the porch tossing a Molotov cocktail in their direction, they fled the scene. The reason that this elaborate self-defense setup was necessary was because the civil rights workers couldn't rely on the police. The sheriff of the town was leading the night riders that evening. Civil rights organizers weren't fools. They knew they needed defense when the state wouldn't supply it. They knew that when things went awry, as it did during the Freedom Rides in the early 1960s, that they needed people to recover and aid those who were wounded in firebombing and attacks by the KKK. They were never planless. They did not expect nonviolence from everyday citizens exercising existing rights, and they even provided armed support for those who were engaged in NVDAs themselves. Rather than try to kick somebody out for providing self-defense for the group, they embraced these people as essential to the NVDA workers' success. So let us learn from those who came before us. Let us recognize that society notices when men do not respond to violence with violence, but it seems like even women within feminism expect other women to roll over and be doormats. Let us embrace those who defend us, particularly our female heroes like Gina Hawk. As we move forward in the existential battle against the misogynistic, anti-natalist death cult that is gender ideology, let's focus our critical energies against the external threats and focus our gratitude and appreciation towards our poster-carrying shield maidens, our brave mama bears wielding bear spray, and keep our eyes on the prize and our words on the mics.
I just want to make it really clear, I've never asked for any pledge. I'm also aware that my name was attached to some sort of request for pledges, but as far as I'm concerned, we come here as adults. We are responsible for ourselves only, and that's good and bad. So I don't take, if somebody gives an incredible speech, it's not my credit to take. I'm just really happy it's on my channel. But, you know, when it comes to the way any woman behaves when she is met with threats of violence, it's certainly nothing that I have ever said that would demand that she do nothing. I fundamentally don't believe, when it comes to this idea of non-violence, I don't believe beaten women, women with broken fingers, women pummelled and bloodied, I don't believe that that will convince anybody who isn't already convinced that you shouldn't be slicing off the breasts of children. So I find it futile. I don't want to be sat in the back of an ambulance with a bloodied face just to prove a point that I'm non-violent. I'd rather actually be quite violent at that point. Not that I'm advocating violence, obviously. I'm just saying if you know, prepare that if you attack women, there may be some consequences, and there should be some consequences. And at the moment, we can't rely on the police to actually give out those consequences. Would anybody else like to speak? Would you like to speak? No. I'm aghast. Do you want to speak again?
I just want to say something about safeguarding children.
Come on. It's quite right. It's such a lovely day. Let's try. If you've got another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we can stand in the sun. That'd be lovely.
School board speeches taught me to talk within 60 seconds. So I just wanted to really quickly say something about the safeguarding of children, which clearly we have dropped the ball on that as a society. And I'm probably preaching to the choir to a lot of you who've been involved with this for years, but I just wanted to talk about that gender ideology and that queer theory, and how what we're doing by introducing it into the schools through the policies and the books, and I'm not a book banner, but I do believe that children need to be kept, their innocence needs to be protected for as long as possible. By incorporating, you know, the pronouns, or teachers who decide to trans halfway through the year, by incorporating the open bathroom policies, we are teaching kids from a very early age to ignore the red flags, because children naturally are cautious around adults that look odd, or a big man in a dress who wants them to sit around them and read a book at the library. And we're teaching children to ignore those red flags, and in fact, to have those red flags is bigotry and it's mean, and so they need to be welcoming and accepting to a person of the opposite sex in the bathroom with them, reading library floor. So I think, yeah, this is the biggest problem with this ideology, and is that we are literally teaching children to ignore their instincts, which sets them up to be victims to predators. And that's just all I wanted to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say some more? Yeah, you carry on. Because I think we're trying to put kids at school and carry on. Okay.
Do you want to, you're doing the school board, do you want to give anybody watching a little bit of advice? So that
Oh, like for speaking for school, like to speak at the school
and how
board?
to get involved, that'd be great.
Well,
What you need first.
okay, well, the one thing I want to say is I didn't prepare to talk anything today, but the one thing that I've said in school board speeches myself more than once, even before this topic, is I kind of think part what helped them get here, bring these type of things into our schools, is it doesn't matter what generation you're from. I bet almost all of us that are parents here today, what's the first thing you teach your kid when you send them off to school in the early, even kindergarten? You say, listen to your teacher. They hijacked that. They hijack that. And you can find your child will come home. It can even be over something they learned in math that you know is different than it should be. And they will argue with you and say, my teacher told me. That's the easy type of thing. Now imagine all of this. I know there was kindergarten last year. Just started school being asked what his pronouns were. Asking his mom and dad, I thought I was a boy. Am I not a boy? You have to wonder why these people in the school system want to have access to children to get in their heads and try and change how they think. They know children are vulnerable. Children don't know what color they like on every day. You will have a child who will swear that Johnny's their best friend, no matter what, and you find out Johnny just like showed up to school that afternoon, you know, and it's so important that parents have realistic conversations with children from young. They have to have open conversations. The conversations need to happen at home, not be left to happen at school. And it's a sad day that it's gotten to this level, that it's gotten beyond listen to your teacher. What we meant was be respectful, follow instructions. It was as simple as that. They've hijacked that. That's how they got there. That's how much of this has happened. I've seen librarians. Why have librarians been given so much latitude to put whatever they want in the libraries and even on display? If you're trying to teach about open-mindedness, you should have a balance. But they're not. They're being allowed in our public schools to put their narrative up there, and there's no consequences. So the thing that you have to understand is a lot of people, it's scary to go up and speak, especially the first time. We are our worst critics, and we have to get out of our own heads for that. But what's important is parents sit there and say, well, they don't listen to us anyways. But you know what? They will. The more that we come, they will. And know that sometimes it may not be public speaking is your forte, but maybe it's letter writing. There's different ways to be active and to get your message out. There's talking to others. Look at these ladies here today. She just learned a couple weeks ago from learning from a friend. We have to have conversations. I talk to people in stores. I talk to people. I'm not afraid wherever. We have to stop being shy about having these conversations of the truth and what's going on. So again, you know, got to stop being our own critics. Get comfortable in these conversations. The more you talk to people, the more, you know, things will come naturally. But the biggest thing is teach your children to listen to you and trust you. And what we also told them is if an adult tells you to keep a secret, don't trust them.
Yeah, quite. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you want to say something else? Yes. Come on. Beautiful.
All right. Well, I decided I would bring this up on a lighter note, but it is a more serious thing. I'm not wearing makeup. I'm not doing a great job at this moment of portraying or performing is the word, femininity. There are innumerable things where I'm performing femininity because I'm wearing high heels, I'm wearing lipstick, I'm wearing long hair. I specifically have failed to perform on purpose, unlike Kellie-Jay, who looks fab. But what I would like to see in what often, I mean, in the Dylan Mulvaney-esque vein of things, becomes a parody of women, rather than have like the old Southern blackface horribleness version of woman face, where I'm more feminine than you are because I have blah blah blah. You know, no. But I would like to challenge any hate watchers of Kellie-Jay's to perform femininity, because how often do you see actual physical biological women gathering en masse at a protest to hurt people? Women, real women, women without bulges in their pants, do not go off and throw milkshakes, spray stuff, throw water bottles. They do not do this, and so I challenge those women facers out there to emulate what is truly a feminine characteristic and stop threatening us with your lady dick and stop being misogynists who hate women. That's it. Oh, I tried to take it.
Sorry. Would anybody else like to speak? Anyone else? Come on. I'm going to put this over here just so because everyone's speaking so nicely today. I'm sure the sound is wonderful.
We all tried still, you're good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be very quick because I feel like everyone has really said a lot of great ideas, really good things to say, has pointed out a lot of the issues that do affect us. But I have been told repeatedly that this issue doesn't affect me. I've been told that by my family. I've been told that by my friends. And I think this affects every single woman out there. If we cannot define ourselves, we cannot keep the rights that we have, and we cannot keep gaining rights if we cannot define woman as an adult human female. And I mean, yeah, all I have.
Well, that was great.
Yes.
Concise and perfect, unlike some people's tweets. I won't name who they are. Okay, so are we done? You want to speak? Come on.
No.
No, this lady here.
Oh my God.
Oh, she's wearing a jumpsuit.
I wanted to match you.
I'm so sorry. I know I didn't wear one. I'm so sorry. I should have worn it, but
I'm
then
a little upset. I'm not gonna lie.
Next to you.
Oh, that's so not true. We were supposed to be twinning. Hi y'all. My name is Tanya. I just came out because I wanted to represent women, and I wanted to see Posie, KJK, obviously. I moved to Virginia about 3 years ago, and right before COVID happened, thank God, and started really like getting in touch with my local women who felt the same way as me, and I'm like stuttering out. So I wasn't planning on, I was just planning on showing up with my sign and having a speech prepared, but then I ended up helping with Natasha to do the event. Natasha did an awesome job, and gathering our women. I just want to say my Aunt Deb was in prison for 10 years at Edna Maham Prison or Correctional Facility in New Jersey. She's been out for 2 years. Her and the other women in that prison that were incarcerated and got let out, they protested because they were being beaten up and raped by the guards there, and also the male inmates inside, which there are a lot more than people think. Last time I asked, she thought there was probably 15 to 20 in there. These men have heinous criminal backgrounds. They're not the type of men that people would think would be in the female prison because they've been watching Orange is the New Black for too long. I think that they think Laverne Cox is hanging out up there. No, it's just men and their cocks hanging out in there. And ever since she's got out, they got 10 to 15 guards, I believe, fired, locked up, charged. You're right. And she has a class action lawsuit against Edna Mahan Correctional Facility with other women, not just from the abuse that she dealt with at the hands of the guards, but also of the inmates who, you know, they've impregnated 3 women already in that prison. And that's in New Jersey for anyone who doesn't know. But here, men are expected, last that I checked, to have the surgery. Not that that matters or changes who they are, because it doesn't. And hormones and chopping your dick off and flipping it inside out does not change males' propensity to violence, and conflating sex and gender identity within the law gives gender identity precedence over sex, which is insane, and we've seen it time and time again. Obviously, that's why we are all here. When a simple solution would be to just, you know, not discriminate against women as a sex-based class, not discriminate against people who don't conform to sex role stereotypes. It's not rocket science. And not discriminate against people based on who they love. But yeah, this isn't fucking our problem. It's men's problem. If, you know, men are scared to use the bathroom with other men, so what? Throw them in with the women? Like, that's fucking crazy talk. I'm sorry, I'm cursing. I'm from New Jersey and I moved here from Philly originally. So yeah, that's my problem. But that's all I wanted to say. It's ridiculous. It's crazy talk. We need to keep calling it out. Stop being afraid to say what you got to say. I've had my job threatened. I've had people try to get me fired over conversations they overheard me had with another table. I'm a waitress, okay? I'm not like some academic. I don't even have a fucking GED. And my job gets threatened. And I'm just lucky to work at a place that, you know, thinks that's crazy because it's crazy. And I'm happy that I'm in Virginia, but it's seeping in, as all of you know who are parents and have children that go to the schools. People need to wake up, and people need to start having these conversations. And, you know, Redux, Women Are Human, Feminist Current, we've got so many women doing great things, writing great stories. We got to stop tearing people up in public. Like, it's just crazy too. That's about it. I don't know. I'm happy to be here though.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we decided to come to Loudoun County, and I want to say thank you very much to the very many kind women, and really so organised. In a very short space of time, they organised this, so I want to thank them all. And I'm moving in with one of them because I've been to her home and it's lovely. So the kids and my husband, they're on a flight out this afternoon. Will become residents of Virginia. But yeah, to Americans, I'm pretty sure you've heard of Loudoun County and what the parents are doing here. I suggest if you haven't followed them, look into everything that they're doing. It's sort of textbook of what you can do where you are to fight the insanity, because if we can extract it from the schools, this war is a much easier one to win. So if you can put your differences aside, you better know this. I don't know if many of you watch my YouTube. You have to just say the thing that I'm going to say at the end, and if you don't know it, just pretend and join in. If you can put aside your differences and you can stand with a woman because you know that your unique experience as women is more important than the things that divide you, then I promise we will win. If you can find just one tangible way of moving forward with more people knowing, whether it's a school board, whether it's conversations in a store, whatever it is, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Because I never lose. Yay! Okay, thank you so much. I just...